optimism and pessimism. The majority of us will have a natural bend towards one or the other, but that doesn't mean that you are bound and determined to go through life only seeing things the way that you see them now. You can train your brain to have more of an optimistic view of life, and today I'm going to show you how. I'm Brock Carlisle, a pastor and a licensed counselor, and this is Whiteboard Wednesday. It seems like optimists don't make as many headlines as the pessimists. I mean, you can just look at the news in any channel at any time, and what you're going to see is primarily story after story after story about negative things that are happening. You can look at financial prognosticators, the one that are saying this is what's going to take place in the future of finances. The ones who say, yeah, I think it'll be just about a normal average growth rate, they get disregarded. The ones that find themselves on TV are the naysayers and the ones that are forecasting the doomsday type of forecast. And it's because of the way that our brains naturally attach themselves to the negative. That can be especially problematic if you are a naturally pessimistic person. And so here's kind of where normal people look at this. You've got, is this glass half full or half empty? A realist would say, what's it matter? There's only half there. Drink it and get yourself another one. But the optimist is going to view it as half full. The pessimist is going to view it as half empty. And both of these views can dictate the way that we see circumstances in our lives and the way that we respond to those circumstances. There are some recent studies that prove that the optimist view of life is actually tied to the left brain function. So we all have, we've talked about this before, we all have a right side of our brain and a left side of our brain. The right side of the brain, this is where everything emotion is taking place, particularly in the frontal lobe of the right side of the brain. It's where emotions are felt. In the left side of the brain, this is where we have logic, math, science, problem solving, memory recall. These are all left brain functions. The optimist will tend to be more left-brained people, and the pessimist will tend to be more right-brained people, which gives us hope because you can train your brain to not be as right-brained and to be more left-brained so that when bad things happen, you can look at them with more of an optimistic view. Now, I don't want to overly simplify this process. If you are a person who struggles with pessimism and you just are naturally down or anxious about life in general, I would encourage you to find yourself a good counselor and talk to someone professionally who can help you through these. At the same time, there are two things that I think all of us can do to make sure that we're experiencing life in the most optimistic way possible. So these are the two things that I would start you doing. The first thing I would say is limit the negative intake. Whatever negativity is in the world that you have coming in, I would say limit that. If you've identified a coworker as negative all the time, if you have a friend that's a negative influence, you might want to limit the time that you spend with them. Sorry news, no more news for some of you. If you would just turn off the news, you would have such a better outlook on life. The second thing that you can do is you can acknowledge negativity when it happens. Being optimistic is not about burying your head in the sand and pretending that nothing bad ever happens. Being optimistic means that you acknowledge the negative when it happens, but you don't allow the negativity to dominate your focus. That's what causes pessimism. When all we think about is the bad that's there, how it's going to impact us, or how bad is it going to get, when those are the questions that we're asking, we're looking at the world through a pessimistic view. When we can shift our thoughts We acknowledge the negativity. We don't stay there. We shift our thoughts towards action-oriented questions. Questions like, what do I do with the information that I have? Where do I go from here? How can I help other people? How can I protect myself and my family? When we move into action-oriented questions, then it gives us hope, knowing that there is something that we can do that helps, and that trains our brain to focus on the positive that's going to continue to happen in our lives. So if you're naturally pessimistic, you don't have to stay there. You can learn to be optimistic, and you can have a better outlook on life.